What's up, everyone? This is Kronos, aka Adam, and I am back again with another AEW Week In review. This is where I recap and review both Being the Elite, AEW Dark, and AEW Dynamite for the week of May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Hopefully you enjoyed your Star Wars day. So we're going to get right into it, jump into it. We're going to start with Being the Elite, that was released on Monday. The title of this episode was called An Old Carney Trick. So we start off right away with a new kick-out challenge with Brandon Cutler. This time he actually invites the Young Bucks to join him, and they do it in the gym, Nick's gym, that we've seen several times throughout BTE, most recently in the episode 200, where part of the match between Matt and Nick took place. So Cutler lets us know now that he's just upgrading, not just from pins, but to false finishes. And then we cut to Broken Matt Hardy, who gives us a very fun definition of what a false finish is. So then we go to Cutler and the Bucks, and he doesn't kick out of anything. No matter what they do to him, he gets pinned. The Bucks are getting a little frustrated because they were assuming that Cutler was going to kick out of everything, because that was the whole point of the kick-out challenge. But it's Brandon Cutler, and he loses, and he gets pinned. So he says, after each time he loses, he's trying to kind of, justify it. He even says, look at Hangman, his losses led him to alcoholism, and now he's a tag champ. As usual, Malachi Jackson is the ref, who is the brother of Matt and Nick. Cutler wants to quit, but Matt fires him up. Keeps losing though, so they decide to change the scenery. They go to the area by the tennis courts, basketball court that we've seen on the BTE complex. Then all of a sudden, Matt throws red powder in Cutler's face. He gets pinned for the last time. And it turns out the powder, when Cutler asks him what that powder was, he says, "Oh, it's Kool-Aid, an old Carney trick." Hence the title of the episode. Brandon Cutler, kind of tasting. He says, "I wish it would have been Capri Sun," which you've seen. He's been drinking Capri Sun pretty much through the last 3 or 4 episodes, just randomly. I guess it's a cheap plug for Capri Sun. We then cut to a game of horse, which they entitled BTE, between Matt, Nick, and Malachi. Matt actually starts talking about how he's the best player at Rancho Cucamonga, California. He used to beat them all the time. But he starts losing to all trick shots by Nick and Malachi, and they say to be continued. So either we're going to see it later on, or maybe another episode, but spoiler alert, we see it by the end of the episode. We see the rest of BTE, aka Horse. We then cut to AEW East HQ with Cody and Tony for a new segment Cody entitles Quarantine Confessions. So Tony confesses that he is obsessed with PS4, and he can't get off the mother effer. That's what he says. He can't even say Red Dead Redemption. He keeps Red Dead something with the shooting. So then, Cody actually gets handed a coffee by some production assistant, and on the ring that's supposed to help you, avoid the heat, he turns to the camera, and spoiler alert, if you didn't see last week, or you don't want to know something, fast forward about 5 seconds. The ring says FTR, which we know obviously is for the Revival, Revolt, however you want to call them. Anyway, back. So then we cut to Luchasaurus, the ongoing saga of Luchasaurus. He ends up finding Super Panda at a Panda Express dumpster. So it's actually, he was looking for Super Panda and not his tail, which I might have said in the last recap that he thought he would find the tail at Panda Express, but it was actually Super Panda, who was getting food out of the dumpster, calling him a trash panda, which is kind of funny if you're a MCU fan with Rocket Raccoon. So they keep bleeping out goddamn, which I don't understand. I mean, that's maybe because they're religious. I don't know. So apparently Super Panda has, he knows the deal. He knows what's going on. Apparently he has multiple injuries as a result of tagging with Luchasaurus. He blew out his ACL or his Achilles or something like that. He's actually walking with a cane and a walking boot at the moment. He feels that Luchasaurus neglected him, and he's actually pretty pissed at him. Luchasaurus apologizes, says, he doesn't care about his tail. He cares about his friends, and he'll make the calls to get him back on Bar Wrestling and Defy Wrestling, which are independent promotions, mostly in California. Super Panda, believes that he is, truly sorry, and he says, you know what, I'll help you with it. Goes to hug him. He pushes, Luchasaurus kind of goes, Super Panda's like, why? We're social distancing? And he says, no, you were in a dumpster. You smell like garbage. Okay, makes sense. We then get, a couple times we get this bouncing Colt Cabana head. I guess Colt didn't have a chance to jump in any of the segments this time, so he has to continue the thread of him, taking over BTE, so we get a bouncing Colt Cabana head. We then get a segment of Taz on a Zoom call with Benigno Bodega, who is this fortune teller, who is, I think, over-the-top nonsense. I don't get it. Taz says he hates Excalibur because Excalibur is jealous of him and owes him money. He also hates Tony too. Benigno says, you shouldn't hate him because he has all that WCW money. Taz laughs at that. And then apparently, as this is going on, Excalibur calls Taz, and as Taz tells him off, the call breaks up. So I don't know if that's, real heat or if that's going to bleed into anything or if it's just for the bit. Who knows? We get back to, as I said, the BTE/horse game. Nick tries to do a fake Jordan dunk, misses. Nick trips on an easy layup, which allows Malachi to win. That's pretty much it. Colt Cabana head pops again. We then get back to Private Party. So this Private Party, the actual production quality of this is pretty good. If you don't remember last week, they were attacked. And then they were trying to figure out who attacked them, and they were kind of jawing at each other. They're still trying to figure it out. Quinn gets to the house in the backyard where they've been filming all of these segments. Apparently there's a knock at the door, and it's the guy EJ, who apparently they know who owns the house. They always abuse him and tell him to get the hell out of there. They then turn around and find a piece of paper with an L on it. They assume it's for loss. Mark Quinn says he's going to take it back to the lab and figure out what he can from it. He then gets attacked by the bear and gets his head smashed on some concrete and is knocked out. Cassidy doesn't see this, so he's just kind of drinking, falls asleep. He ends up having a crazy dream with a creepy guy in a mask who's attacking him. He then has like a dream montage of the bear attacking them. He wakes up to figure out, he knows who attacked them and is looking for Mark Quinn, who may or may not be still knocked out outside the backyard. We then get a segment of Hangman stays the hell at home, and then they get some kind of as they do with the Dynamite opening, there's the colors and kind of firework going off, and he ends up making a sourdough bread with no actual items. Apparently he has no pants on, which is not the first time Hangman has gone pantsless or naked in a segment on BTE. It's always blacked out, obviously. Good thing. He then takes it out of the oven. It's a full cut loaf of bread. He then says to his wife, did we disinfect everything? No, I'm not being safe. I'm not being safe enough. I don't know. I think it was just him doing something. So that is BTE. It was pretty quick. Nothing really of note. More just hijinks. No real big storyline elements there. We then get to Dark. So this is actually going to be the last time, I believe, Cody's going to be on the Dark commentary as they are starting to film live thanks to the rollback of restrictions in Florida. The newest episode of Dynamite was filmed live at Daly's Place, so I believe that's what it is. Through social media, they usually post the matches that are going to be on Dark. So this Tuesday, it looks like they were having up to 7 matches, which I think is pretty crazy. So that would be interesting. I think this is maybe now where they're going to start expanding Dark, because they do want to have that second show. So anyway, back to Dark. So we have Ryan Riles versus number 10, who's the newest member of the Dark Order. That he was teased in the last vignette. Riles is only 20 years old. I believe he's a product of the Nightmare Factory QT Marshall School. Brody Lee comes out suited, but apparently 10 has an 0-2 record, which I didn't understand if he's brand new to the Dark Order, unless he was, somebody else. And then, his actual, whatever real name was, he fought on AEW at some point. I don't know. I didn't really research it enough. He gets a vicious clothesline to start on Riles, a German release like Brock Lesnar style, just completely throws Ryan Riles. He keeps looking over at Mr. Brody Lee for approval. Riles gets one kick in, and Brody is pissed. He's slamming a chair, but Ten gets a huge spine buster, ends up with a win, and Mr. Brody Lee shows his appreciation and approval, and so that's that match. We then get the Captain Shawn Dean versus Sammy Guevara. Cody loves to talk about Captain Shawn Dean's bowling skills. He says Sammy just reached a new YouTube milestone, I guess, on his channel where he does his vlog. I guess he hit a certain amount of subscribers, so he got the plaque with the, hopefully one day, if I get more than 4 subscribers, I'm on my way. But Sammy apparently, they're giving some background on him. He's been wrestling since he was 17. He actually vlogs to start the match, which he's done several times, which never works out for him, as it doesn't this time. The captain tries to hit him with a roll-up. Offense, Sammy then starts to get some offense in. The phone is actually still in the ring on the floor. He then grabs it and then does a little more vlogging. He then gets him on his shoulders, starts doing some squats into a Samoan drop. The captain then hit with a stalling vertical suplex. Sammy then gets back on top of the offense. Captain then hits a float over DDT. There's a running knee lift by Sammy, and then he ends up doing a burning GTS for the win. Very short match, but they do like the captain Shawn Dean, and they've been using him a lot. I'll see what happens now that they start to relax things. This will be interesting to see. I know that there are some of the matches that they highlighted for Dark for this coming Tuesday. There were some still enhancement talent, so we'll see how that actually starts to shape up now that more wrestlers can come back and get involved. So we'll see. And then we have our main event for Dark, which is Kip Sabian versus Colt Cabana. And if you have been watching AEW, on the March 18th episode of Dynamite, Colt Cabana slapped Kip Sabian while he was getting interviewed by Tony. So this was kind of brewing ever since then. So then Colt slaps Kip to start. He then tickles Penelope on the outside. He steps away from a springboard kick. So Kip just lands on the ground. He's just really arrogant, but he's being really funny about it. It just seems like he's a step ahead of whatever Kip is trying to do. Ford distracts enough for a step up insecurity on Colt. He won't kiss Kip. He won't. Penelope Ford won't kiss Kip. She looks kind of frustrated, and that actually makes Kip very aggressive and frustrated as well. He does a roll through PK penalty kick on Colt. They start trading blows. Then Kip hits a springboard missile drop kick for a 2 count. Colt ends up going to the top rope, and Ford comes in to distract him. There's a low blow and a matchbook cover by Kip for the win. Colt started out undefeated. He then has now lost to Lance Archer and Kip Sabian. So we'll see what happens with Colt Cabana there. What's he going to do to rebound, build himself back up. And then there's a makeout session between Kip and his fiance to celebrate. And we're done with Dark. So now Dynamite, which was probably my favorite program of the week and had probably my favorite match of the week, which will obviously be my match of the week. Clearly. So we're back live, like I said, at Daily's Pace. We get the full commentary team of JR, Tony, and Excalibur. They even have more wrestlers in the crowd than they normally have because they're able to do that. They're all distanced, though. They're all wearing masks. So we get the first match is Joey Janela versus Cody. Starts off with a lot of mat-based wrestling. Joey Janela obviously is known as kind of like a death match, kind of extreme wrestler, but he actually happens to be a very good, technically sound wrestler. You do see that a lot in his matches. So that's something that, he doesn't get enough credit for, which he should. It then boils down into a chop fest. Cody with a stalled suplex. JR actually makes the comment about everyone being tested and playing by the rules, acknowledging the pandemic, which I do, appreciate. Obviously, there's an inherent risk in doing what they're doing, but they're doing it according to the rules, to the science, and they're acknowledging it, as opposed to WWE that just basically, very, very tangentially tries to kind of, let us know that there's something going on, but they just don't, it's almost like they're not acknowledging it and trying to find different ways to explain why they don't have things going on, which I think is completely ridiculous. I don't see an issue for them to show and really acknowledge that this is what's going on in our country right now. So that's it. JR also starts talking about how Janela is a grifter and kind of like a wily guy. He's always got some kind of scheme going on. And the fun thing is, Janela is an entrepreneur. Like, he does his Spring Break, which is a big indie wrestling show that he does every year. And, he finds ways to, make money. Obviously, he's a independent wrestler. Before he got to AEW, they only make a limited amount of money. They only, it's pretty much through their appearances and merch sales. So they have to find ways to make a living. And, if they're not going to have a second job, they have to do it through wrestling. So, he does a lot of good things there. Cody tries a crossroads attempt. He fails. A back suplex for a 2 count by Joey Janela on Cody. They end up fighting to the outside. Janela attempts to kind of do like a handstand stalling by the stage area and just completely fails. I don't know if that was meant to fail or if it was just a botch. Just looked kind of weird. But they recovered. Janela takes a running start all the way to the back and then goes for some kind of kick or knee or something, misses. He ends up getting a disaster kick in the face. Cody hits a moonsault from the stage and lands on his feet, which is pretty impressive. Then we get a shot of Nasty Leroy, who I didn't know much about. I had to do a little digging on it. He's some kind of independent wrestler. I think he was from QT Marshall's school, and he's been on a couple of things with Joey Janela, but apparently everyone loves him. Janela hits a big elbow drop from the top for a 2 count. Then Cody hits a reverse suplex from the top rope on Janela for a 2 count. Joey Janela tries a package pile driver, ends up getting a disaster kick count, which is countered actually into a German suplex by Janela. There's another moonsault by Cody, which fails. Actually, Janela tries the moonsault, fails, ends up with getting a Cody cutter from the top rope for a 2 count. Then Cody ends up hitting a crossroads for the win. They shake hands, but it's a match that Cody wanted kind of as a tune-up for Lance Archer, which it will be happening at Double or Nothing. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Quite parched. If you hear some hissing in the background, my heater's on because it's, I guess, a little cold and I can't shut it off because it's the building. So then we get a vignette discussing the women's division, mostly featuring Nyla, just how everything is led up to where they are right now. Obviously, the women's division has taken a big back seat with everything that's been going on. So we get Nyla Rose, her first action since months ago, against Kenzie Page. As Nyla comes to the match, to the ring, Tony gives a pre-match interview. Basically, just gets yelled at and told to sit his ass down and do his job. Kenzie Page is 18 years old. It's a full squash match. There's a huge top rope senton by Nyla Rose, and then she does 3 beast bombs for the win. That's pretty much it. We had an MJF promo in front of a bad green screen. I mean, he's a great talker. It's a great, it's a good promo. It just looks really cheesy. They end up switching out the chairs for a throne. But yeah, he's great, but he's no this. He's great, but he's no that. All these different legends. That's what they say about him. But that's just because they're insecure. Typical MJF promo, but there we go. Then we get a Shawn Spears promo saying that Cody's a terrible brother for not protecting Dustin last week against Lance Archer. He would never let his brother, who's 11 years younger, he would never let that happen. I assume we're getting back at some point to this rivalry between Cody and Shawn Spears. Cody kind of dominated it, so we'll see what ends up happening now that he won the first match after the big chair shot. Then they won in the match for the TNT Championship, so we'll see what ends up happening. I think they should do that, and I think Spears needs to get a little payback, maybe even get a couple victories. He's been doing well, in the matches that he's been on TV, but they've been mostly enhancement talent, nothing really of note. Except I think the biggest one he had was against Billy Gunn. So, take that as you will. We then get a ringside interview with MJF and Spears, who's with Wardlow. MJF is rocking a Burberry mask because he's got to be staying on brand. He'll be back in action next week. They haven't said who he's going to be facing. They're counting money. I guess they were doing some more gambling again. MJF and Spears are putting each other over, kind of joking back and forth. Tony then says that he gets word from Tony Khan from the back that MJF is signed at Double or Nothing, and he'll be facing Jungle Boy. MJF does a spit take, which I don't know, based on everything that's going on, that maybe spitting wine out, right on, essentially like onto Tony is probably the best idea, but, I'm not going to be a stickler for it. It's just kind of, whatever. We then get Jon Moxley versus Frankie Kazarian in a non-title match. It starts out with a lot of headlocks. This match was it was kind of a slog to get through. But Frank Kazarian looks in great shape. Moxley just kind of looked kind of tired, kind of out of it. I don't know if that's him traveling. He said he had to drive all the way from, I believe, like the Vegas area to Florida. So I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it just seemed like something was off there. They're slugging it out on the stage and then fight all over the outside. Moxley tries some kind of chicken wing on Kaz, but he gets to the ropes. Moxley then tries a double axe handle from the top rope to the outside, but catches a boot in the face. They get back in the ring. There's a German release suplex by Mox. Kaz hits a backstabber, and then like a I'm Prettier for a 2 count. Mox tries to hit a paradigm shift, but it's countered into what Excalibur calls a 3-in-1 submission. He has to kick his way out with his one free leg. Mox finally gets the paradigm shift for the win. But it was a long match, a lot longer than I expected it to be. While Mox is celebrating, he gets attacked by the Dark Order minions. They come in, they just start to lay him out. SCU comes out to try to help out, but they end up getting beat down. Kazarian's still kind of reeling from the paradigm shift, so he gets hit. Then Brody Lee comes out with the chair, hits Daniels with the chair, and then Daniels is apparently out for the entire rest of the segment, which I thought was funny. You could just see him in the background just laying there. So then he lays out Mox with a discus clothesline. He gets on the mic and says that he's not the same follower he was in the past. He's a leader, and Mox has something he wants. And as Mox, he drops the mic near Mox. Mox is pretty beat up, but he says all he had to do was ask. Then he catches a boot in the face by Brody Lee, and the Dark Order kind of beats him up and leaves. And then we find out later that Brody Lee actually left with the AEW Championship belt. So I guess that'll be a storyline for the next couple weeks, of him getting it back. Probably he'll win and get it back at Double or Nothing, although it is a little odd that he's kind of, taking, he's looking to do this so soon with Brody Lee. He's in the title picture already. I mean, if he takes the loss, how will that look? We'll see. I trust AEW. That, even if there's a wonk finish, I do think that they are, they seem a little more on top of things and being able to, even when there's something that you don't like necessarily, you still think it's a little better than what WWE has been putting out. Anyway, we get a Brandy promo talking shit on Jake the Snake, saying it's not 1991, she's not going to get slapped like he did with Miss Elizabeth back then. She's a lot tougher, and she'll slap back. You don't F with people you don't know, as her mom told her. This will come into play in the next segment. We get QT Marshall versus Lance Archer. QT Marshall wants kind of revenge for what Lance Archer did to his tag team partner Dustin. A little sidebar in the Road to videos on YouTube, on AEW's YouTube, on the Road to Double or Nothing, QT Marshall actually goes to DDP's palatial mansion and kind of wants some advice. DDP won't let him in because of social distancing, and it's a pretty cool segment between the two. I think, if you want to see some more, if you want more content for AEW besides this, obviously, and the actual shows, I would check out the Road 2 series. Comes out once a week, kind of just highlights what's going to be going on in the world of the individuals that will be participating in Double or Nothing. Pretty cool. So Jake Roberts is back. He's rocking a mask as well. When Lance comes out, he knocks out one of the enhancement talent, Jason Cade. I think it's great. Every single time he comes out, he just punches somebody. So he then, there's some fighting. He actually choke slams QT on the apron. Lance begins to stalk Brandy. Britt hits QT on the outside with a shoe. Brandon grabs the shoe and throws it into the crowd. There's a springboard insecurity by QT, and then he actually suplexes Lance. Lance then recovers. It's a huge shoulder block. There's a blackout, but he pulls him up. Blackout is his finisher, but he pulls up, does the claw slam of the head on the mat for a few times for the win. Britt then comes out and DDTs Brandy on the outside and throws her into the ring. Lance pulls her into the center of the ring. Jake comes into the ring then with a snake. For some reason, Tony says that it's the same snake when JR says no, he's had many snakes over the years. He puts the snake on Brandy, and then while he's doing that, he kind of does like a push-up position over her. It's a little creepy, a little much, but obviously they're all cool with it. So we'll see. Obviously, the way they explain why Cody wasn't out there, which obviously his wife is basically getting like kind of creeped on by an old man with a snake. They say that because he just had his match and he was recovering, the area where the wrestlers recover is actually further away. So even if he left the second that it started, he wouldn't have gotten there in time. So we'll get to see this week how he reacts to that, and if there's going to be a receipt for Jake and Lance. So then they do announce a bunch of the Double or Nothing matches coming on May 23rd, Saturday, from Daly's Place, I assume it's going to be. Mox versus Brody Lee for the AEW Championship. MJF versus Jungle Boy, which we know. Cody versus Lance Archer in the finals of the TNT Championship Tournament, which we also know. And then, so last year at Double or Nothing, we had the Casino Battle Royale, and the winner of that got a title shot, which was Hangman actually won that. Now this year they're doing not a battle royale but a casino ladder match, which will be super interesting because I like when they do gimmick matches. I think they really skill them. So the winner will get a title shot, and JR says we'll get the details of who's going to be in it, how the match is going to go next week. So that'll be interesting. We then get a backstage segment with Taz and Darby. You can see Darby is still visibly upset from losing last week, and he's not saying anything. Taz kind of highlights his mistakes, but he offers to help, professional to professional. Darby doesn't even say a word, just walks off, really pissed off. Taz doesn't know how to respond, so he just says, okay. Something that I really, really enjoy about Dynamite is they give you almost like a full rundown of what's going to happen the next week. With WWE, unless it's like a title match or something very specific, we often don't find out what's happening unless they do it on social media, which, not everyone's paying attention to social media, but it's kind of good because you want to, get people interested in the next week. And if you're giving them all these good matches, or at least letting them know they have something to look forward to, which I really appreciate Dynamite does. So, they give a rundown of what next week is going to be on Dynamite. So we have Brody Lee versus Christopher Daniels, which is kind of, they're kind of rekindling that feud from the when Daniels was, at first thought to be the Exalted One, and then he had his beef with Dark Order. So we're rekindling that. MJF, as we said, is going to be in action. We get the Jurassic Express versus Best Friends, which is really good to see Jurassic Express back in action. Best Friends has really been doing a lot of good things. So we'll see how they do that, especially, with the tag team division the way it is, with the rankings and whatnot. I like both teams, so it's going to be tough. I don't know who to root for. We're then going to get a Lance Archer and Jake Roberts interview. Kind of, I guess they'll explain their actions. We'll get and then we're also getting a 4-way women's match. Sheeta, Britt Baker, Penelope Ford, and Chris Statlander, who are basically like the top 4 contenders for Nyla Rose's championship. It does. They obviously said it's going to have implications, even though Sheeta is already the number 1 contender and she's been it for a long time, and she should have a title match. I hope that she, if she doesn't win this, that it doesn't take her out of contention, but we'll see. We also get Chris Jericho in action. We then get our main event, which I'm going to just spoil it now. This was my favorite match of the week of any promotion, WWE or AEW. This was great. This was the Le Sex Gods, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Kenny Omega and Broken Matt Hardy, teaming for the first time ever. They had to make a point of that, but it's not crazy to think, they just never tagged together. But everyone is pretty much dressed for a fight. They're wearing t-shirt and jeans except Matt Hardy. He's in his, kind of ensemble. Hager is out with Jericho and Sammy. Pineapple Pete, Shug D, takes a swing at Jericho. Hager gets a stare down. We then find out that Pineapple Pete is going to be the one who fights Jericho. I mean, if any single wrestler has benefited from the pandemic that's been going on, I think it might be Pineapple Pete. He gets called out every week by Jericho when he's on commentary. He hates this guy. And this guy's not, his name wasn't even Pineapple Pete. He just happened to be wearing a pineapple shirt. And so, yeah, this guy is made famous now. So I actually think that's going to be a good match. I hope he gives Jericho... I don't think Jericho should struggle, but I think Shug D, Pineapple Pete should give him a good match. I do enjoy... Okay, so yeah. What I found interesting was they went to commercial break and they gave Sammy cue cards, which he usually does in the picture-in-picture, but there was no picture-in-picture. So I guess, just anyone who gets the Fight TV feed got it, but not us. I like the new theme music, the kind of piano for Hardy. He starts to bite Sammy's finger, and that starts the match. Kenny and Hardy do some old Hardy Brothers moves, jumping off the back of another. The Hardy Boys. There's a You Can't Escape by Kenny, but he misses the moonsault. Jericho and Hardy fight up to the top of the entrance tunnel. Jericho returns for double teaming on Kenny. Hardy is nowhere to be seen, but then he comes back dressed as the old school Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy. Cleans house with side effects and twists of fates, but I'm assuming they can't call them that, so that's why they're kind of, I'm assuming those are trademarked by WWE. Jericho, who brought a bat to the ring, finally pulls it out, starts using it on Kenny. There's a shooting star press by Sammy, but he fails because Kenny gets the knees up. There's a twist of fate on Sammy, and then a V trigger by Kenny. They set up a table and ladder and put Sammy on it. Then Hardy does a splash on to Sammy, crushes him through the table. Hager pulls out the ref during the count. JR actually acknowledges that Hardy was, like some of his fondest memories were Hardy in the TLC matches. So I do appreciate that they don't pretend like there's no other wrestling out there. They do say TLC matches because, we know what they are. We know that they exist. We're not in a vacuum here. So I like that. Hager takes out Kenny. Now he's fully involved in the match as it spills into the concourse during the picture-in-picture. And the crowd, the wrestlers, and anyone else is all watching and spectating, which I thought was pretty cool. Jericho and Hardy start fighting near one of the ice... holders or whatever. Jericho pulls out a bag of ice and just hits Hardy with it. It's like a 20-pound bag of ice. That had to hurt. And then Jericho and Hager shove him into the ice bin and close the door. Kenny comes in with a trash can. He then does a buckle bomb on Sandy against a metal garage, which looked pretty brutal. Hits a V-trigger on Hager. Then Jericho suplexes Kenny on some barricades. He hits Kenny with a cone. He starts laughing kind of like a evil witch, which kind of is funny. And then Kenny then takes one of those wet floor kind of, signs and just shatters it on Jericho's back. Huge loud noise. It smashes all over the place. Looked brutal. And then the ice bin then opens up and Hardy comes out dressed as now, I guess, Damascus. So he then gets into one of those kind of like extended golf carts where the players, NFL players, are kind of carted in and out if they have injuries. So he looks at the camera and he says, "These events need to be documented." And Jared goes, "Well, it's on TV. It's on TV. So yeah, it's going to be documented." He almost runs over Jericho. Jericho kind of gets out of the way just in the nick of time, but does get clipped. Kenny gets in and they start chasing down Sammy. It's a great visual. So the camera is watching Sammy come toward him, and Kenny is kind of on the outside pointing, looking like, we're going to get you. And then Kenny takes just a wild, crazy bump off this, kind of hits it, flips. It was really good, but it was really dangerous too. So then there's some table set up by a scissor lift where Kenny tries to put Sammy on. Then Hager comes in, tries to break it up. Kenny then does a moonsault off the scissor lift as it's raised up. So it was about 10 feet up in the air, and he lands on his feet. That was pretty crazy. Then he's about to do a moonsault. Attempts a one-winged angel on Jericho on some AstroTurf, but in the distance you see Santana Ortiz running out for the save. They start beating on Omega and Hardy. Obviously, the Young Bucks and the rest of the Elite are on the West Coast, so they're not able to help. So it's just the two of them on their own. Hardy gets a triple power bomb through the table. They then hoist up Kenny onto Jericho so that he can powerbomb him on the roof of the car, which is super loud, looked like a pretty bad bump. And then they take Kenny and they throw him into Jericho for a Judas effect for the 3 count and the win. So the Inner Circle is celebrating, and because the concourse leads into the field, so you get the field in the background, and the Inner Circle are celebrating, and then on the Jumbotron, or whatever Tron you want to say, the Inner Circle, logo is there. It's actually a really cool visual that they're celebrating. They give middle fingers to the camera, and we go off the air for Dynamite. So yeah, that is actually everything to do with AEW Dynamite and AEW for the weekend review. Next, we're going to do my match of the week. As I said, it's going to be this match, the tag team crazy match. I mean, this was fought all over. It was great. It was wild. It had a lot of great spots, a lot of fun spots. Everyone got to, I think, enjoy themselves, provided that they didn't get hurt. Hardy and Kenny, took the fight to them, but obviously the numbers advantage was just too much. And the Inner Circle is just a great heel faction right now. Probably the best that we have in all of wrestling, because Chris Jericho is just the best. So, that is my match of the week. Kenny and Matt Hardy tagging for the first time against the Sex Gods. So, yeah, there you have it. As always, social media, like, share, subscribe, comment. Everything you do helps the channel, gets, the search optimization there, makes me more visible. And if there's anything else, nope, that's it. I got one more video coming today. I'm going to be doing my preview and predictions for WWE Money in the Bank that actually will be on Sunday. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, because obviously there are going to be so many moms watching this. So till next week for AEW. Fucking Tiger King. Now Michelle's mad at me because I can't take a picture with a tiger anymore. And now I gotta find new animals. Quack, quack.